Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be going over the Luna 2 banner 5 stars, in which we have Nefer's debut banner, and not only that, but we have Arlecchino's second rerun, with 2 Archons in Zhongli and Furina getting their versionly rerun too. And as standard, I'll just be talking about how good all of these units are in the meta currently, while going over any new teams they've received, and if it's worth pulling for them. But before we do that, as always, if at any point during the video entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding its meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to all my lovely channel members and special shoutouts to Kush and Plume of Death. I was streaming Among Us like a week ago now, and both of them just fucking went insane with gifting memberships. So yeah, thank you so much to the both of them. It means a lot to me and I hope I can continue to be deserving of the support. Sentiments aside, it's time for the shameless plug. Right now, Flint and Yolan are currently on banner, so if you'd like to cut down on the costs while going for them, then I would like to announce the sponsor for today's video, LD Shop. LD Shop is a very safe and reliable top-up site that allows you to get Primo Gems at a great deal starting from 15% off, while keeping your data safe. As for transactions, you only need to type in your UID and region, as you can see me doing here. Just needed to quickly refresh my welkin, and as you can see, it's here. And make sure to use my link, as that way you'll receive an extra 15% off coupon, as well as a 5% off coupon which can save you up to $50. LD Shop goes through official channels as well, meaning that you won't lose any of the in-game benefits like first-time top-up bonuses, so no need to worry. And additionally, because LD Shop is so great, users who spend over $80 will receive a VIP membership, which rewards you with free welcome moons. So head over to ldshop.gg using my link in the description below. What are you waiting for? Thanks to LD Shop for sponsoring this video, now back to it. Let's start with Nefer, a character I'm really excited for, who's a Lunar Bloom DPS that does constant charge attacks enabled by her elemental skill, and it's been interesting seeing how her beta has developed. For one, her field time is longer than what most people assumed, unless you do dash cancels for her, which to be honest her CAs don't consume stamina, so it shouldn't be that bad, but still a lot of people don't want to learn or do dash cancels, so that does have a tangible impact on her DPS by like 10 to 15% from the increase in rotation time. She also got a 5% damage nerf in version 2, which to most characters wouldn't matter that much, but because Nefer is essentially all the damage in her teams, a 5% nerf on her matters more than a nerf to someone like Flint, for example, who does less of the team's majority. And the last thing regarding Nefer is just the fact that her teammate situation is pretty dire. Stygian Onslaught reference. Her best current team, which is Llama, Nahida, Aino, doesn't have a sustain unless you pull for Llama C1, which is Hoya vs Mumun, and no other units really do a lot for Nefer, so your best bet is just taking a damage decrease and running a healer like Kuki to complete your team, in which Nefer still boasts pretty impressive numbers in between Flint and an unoptimized Varessa, sitting at like 110k DPS. This would also put her ahead of Llama double Hydra Hyperbloom teams, but still theoretically behind the Nuvolet Infinite Cost team. Realistically though, because Nefer's teams reach damage breakpoints much faster than Hyperbloom teams, you most likely will always get faster clears with Nefer over any Hyperbloom team currently, or any Llama team currently in general. And because Nefer is so much of the team's damage, any vertical investment on her will once again shoot her much higher than these teams. This is assuming you have Llama to complement your Nefer though. Looking at Llama-less Nefer teams, especially post-nerf, these are quite meh to me. Nefer needs at least one other Nordcry character to enable her Lunar Bloom playstyle, so with Aino you still can use her as a Lunar Bloom DPS, but her teams lose around 30% of their damage without Llama, just because again not a lot of characters really do anything for her, making her not even cross the 80k DPS range. So yeah, it's like the damage of teams in version 4.x, which is fine for Spiral Abyss 12 and should reach the damage breakpoints for Stygian Fearless, but you're not clearing Dire with this. Speaking of Stygian, actually another thing Nefer has going for her is the fact that there's the upcoming Stygian boss that wants a lot of lunar reaction hits, and Nefer does the most lunar hits in the game at 18 in a 10-second damage window, so with Llama you should be able to push Dire very easily with this, and no Llama should still be fine for Fearless. The Stygian obviously isn't out yet though, so we have to see how well other teams can brute force this boss, to see if it's worth pulling Nefer just for this. Overall, I do think Nefer is shaping up to be one of the better carries in the game if you plan to learn her cancels and have Llama, as she just outputs some of the highest numbers in the game, and she's doing it while having actual real hyper carry distributions, which is good as it means vertical investment on her is more impactful, whether that be artifacts, constellations, or weapon upgrades. This does also mean that if you lack investment in her, she'll feel proportionately worse than other teams that have multiple sources of damage, so you can see this as either a positive or negative. The same thing applies to dash cancels, as I know some people just don't want to learn them, which will make Nefer perform worse, and is a problem someone like Flint wouldn't really run into, as his optimal gameplay loop is just trying to hit his 2 special bursts. Then the last thing to note, as I already alluded to, is her Llama reliance. Nefer is the best utilizer of Llama, but pulling for Nefer means that you can't run your Nilu and you can't run your really good Hyperbloom teams, so you'll most likely be benching them to play Nefer, Nefer, or you won't get to play them all the time at least, which even if it is the best thing to do meta-wise, some people just don't want to do that, which is fine. And of course, if you don't have Llama at all, I don't really recommend pulling Nefer unless you've missed every other Nordcry character and just want a cheap fearless clear for Stygian. But yes, those are my current thoughts on Nefer, and because people are going to ask so they can call me biased, I do think ultimately strength-wise she's a decent bit better than Flynn's, but in terms of value they're mostly in the same boat, with being the premium checks to dire bosses with lunar mechanics, while having a ton of reliance on their premium supports to feel really good. That's about it. If you have a Nefer, you should pull Flynn's, and if you have Llama, you should pull for Nefer. The next character we're going to talk about is going to be Zhongli, and oh man, if you know me, you should know how I feel toward Zhongli, and to me I never really thought he was a character you should seek out, seeing that his kit is just so defensively oriented, and I think a 20% global shred as a debuff just doesn't cut it anymore for a majority of the cast. He is a very comfortable character to use, and if you value the comfort, then sure you can pull for him, but my main problem especially now is that he kinda doesn't have a place in the current meta. Supports in Genshin ever since Shilonen are not only some of the best buffers in the game, but they also tend to now be some of the best sub DPS in the game, and more importantly sustains, to where what Zhongli provides is less needed. Lanyan is a 4-star shielder that with C2 becomes the strongest shielder in the game by being able to refresh shields, and she does this on top of being able to hold Verdescent and use Throwing Tails, which does more offensively than Zhongli. We just had a Nefa, which I don't need to explain, but sure, she's a shielder, shitting out some of the highest numbers in the game from all field, whilst also applying a useful element and leaning into the new lunar mechanics, which will be relevant for the next year. Sitzlali is also a shielder, albeit not the strongest, but still enough to sustain teams decently, while being one of the best amplifiers in the game. Escofia has team-wide and single target healing while having strong sub DPS and debuffing. Sustains in Genshin are just getting stronger and more specialized, and a more general shielder pick like Zhongli has just been getting phased out more and more, and Lanyan in my opinion for most teams besides Geo and Dendro is also a better generalist sustain, with his stronger shield, minor EM buffing and surprisingly good personal damage. Ever since his last rerun, Zhongli hasn't really received a new team where he particularly shines in besides Nefer, but I don't think it's worth pulling him just for that. So for all the reasons I listed prior, unless you want to complete your Archon collection or just want to have a comfortable pick for Overworld, I don't think there's really any meta reasons to use Zhongli, especially over the current support options we've been getting. Now before getting into the next character, if you're at this point in the video, you're clearly enjoying it, so just do us both a favor and put the like and subscribe in the bag, and sharing my videos too, as it would really help a lot. And if you want to see my calculations early or just see me yapping, my Twitter is linked in the description below, so please go check it out. Now going back onto the video, let's talk about Arlecchino. Okay, now that another Malvika banner has happened, we have found better ways to optimize Malvika teams, the release of Eonslin, who is more beneficial to almost all the Natlan DPS and boosted them up, and the release of stronger DPS since Arlecchino's banner like Varessa, Flynn's, and soon to be Nefer. Oh yeah, let's also not forget that C1 Hu Tao is also just a free constellation and allows Hu Tao to be on par with Arlecchino teams. Yo, what does the Knave even do? Okay, to be more critical, as we all know Arlecchino is a pyro DPS and was at 1 point hailed to be a top 3 DPS. That is no longer really the case now, however, due to the other characters getting stronger buffers and stronger DPS releasing. Now, at the time of Arlecchino's first rerun, her best team was a Melt setup, either solo or double cryo alongside Sitlali, and honestly, even till now, her Melt teams still do hold up a decent amount. It's just the fact that she steals a teammate away from a potential Malvika that is the big thing. The only real change to Arlecchino's team since her rerun is getting another extremely competitive core in today's meta with a Nefa. Using a Nefa Yulan or a Nefa Aino to make overvape teams are Arlecchino's current best, and not only is it a good team on paper, but with the Nordcry meta, it's one of the better teams that use a Nefa, allowing it to be a good check against the Nordcry bosses for Stygian or the Abyss, and Columbina is most likely going to be an upscale to this. The only problem I have with this team, however, is the fact that Flynn's is on banner right now, and you much rather use him with Aino and a Nefa. So if you don't already have Arlecchino, I wouldn't pull her just to play this team, you're mostly using this team to keep Arlecchino relevant. So for the fact that they're just stronger DPS right now, and most of Arlecchino's teams are taking away key supports like Chevroux, Sitlali, or Nefa, which are much better used for other carries, Arlecchino is also just another DPS that unless you really like her, I can't really recommend, in spite of her actually being pretty good and still holding up quite well. And with the rumors that Alice might be a pyro DPS, you're better off just waiting for her or Malvika, or just pulling and investing into any Nordcry team right now. Now to close off the analysis, we get to talk about Furina, and to briefly cover what she does, she's a Hydra sub DPS and support who applies long-lasting Hydra from all field with her elemental skill, whilst whilst her burst gives you a team-wide damage buff that scales with the amount of HP changes on your team. Furina will drain the HP from your teammates when her skill hits opponents, so that gives you a negative HP change, and you ideally want to run her with a healer of some kind, whether that's a team-wide healer or a strong single-target healer like Bennett or Shilonen, so she has a positive HP change, which gives her a stronger team-wide damage bonus buff. Now there's actually a decent amount that's changed with Furina since her last rerun. For one, there's Varessa, who alongside Furina can be played with Xianyun or Shilonen, and while it isn't Varessa's best team, it's still something she can do. And in the patch after that, we got Escoffier, who's just the best healer for Furina, enabling and boosting up double Hydra teams, with another Hydra or Cryo DPS in the team, as well as making a wheelchair core for most Hydra and Cryo DPS. And then again, a patch after that, we got Skirk, whose teams are actually just at the apex of the game right now, with her even on off-shield bosses being able to brute force most content in the game. And hell, even now in the Luna cycle of patches where Furina shouldn't be relevant, because the current Hydra support options aren't that great, Furina just applying Hydra from her skill without even needing to burst, and being able to hold a supportive set while doing some damage, it puts her as the best Hydra in Flynn's teams unless you have a C6 Ino, as well as being the best pick behind Ino for Nefer too. This is obviously going to change with Columbina, so if you want to support for your Nordcry DPS, I'd recommend keep using Ino for now over pulling for Furina. It isn't worth getting her just for this use case, unless you have other reasons to pull for her. Those other reasons being, for one, her synergy with Escoffier, as I touched on prior. If you're looking to make any of your Hydra or Cryo DPS better, she is your go-to for that. If you have Nouvelette, Furina's close to must pull for you too, and if you have Yolon, Furina enables her as a carry the best, as well as opening up the strongest way to utilize a double Hydra core, which is one of the best team cores a lot of the older units have access to. Now from a purely meta lens, the thing that does hold Furina back is that she's a very good character for a lot of units. It just happens that a lot of the units Furina's best for aren't really top of the meta right now. So if you are someone that started recently, unless as I said prior, interested in some of the older characters that don't really have a set in stone team core, or want to spec into Skirk Escoffier teams, then I would recommend just saving for Columbine and picking a DPS up like Nefer or Flynn's, especially if you already have the core units like Llama or Nefa. Leaning into the Nordcry meta will do you more wonders than specking into the older teams. So to conclude, I think Furina and Nefer with Llama are tied for the most valuable pull of the patch, Furina being the best generalist in the game right now, while having access to the second strongest team in the game right now being with Skirk, and then Nefer with Llama is the best DPS in this version, while having lunar damage which should be relevant for the next year or so. Arlecchino can also be a very solid DPS for you too, unless she's taking a core support like a Nefa for Flynn's, or Sitlali away from your Malvika. And then I've said my grievances about Zhongli. I cannot think of an account that would benefit from him, especially with just how much stronger sustains are getting. We can now talk about vertical investment, in which Nefer gets dibs, and here's a vertical investment infographic for her. Comparative to other characters, Nefer's vertical investment is actually proportionately lower than most other modern carries, like looking at the damage increase she gains from her first few constellations and weapon. But I do think this is due to the fact that unlike some other DPS units, Nefer's best team is like actually a hypercarry team, where she's doing close to 90% of the team's damage, depending on teammates. So I do think her vertical being weaker is a way to balance this out. Regardless, both Nefer's signature and C1 are extremely similar to the point that it really shouldn't matter what you pick. So if you want any of the 4 stars on her banner, go for them. Otherwise, just get the weapon as it's lower pity. For Zhongli, that's all I needed to say. For Furina, her weapon isn't good either, so just pull for constellations. Both her C1 and C2 are great. Furina, even at C6, probably still wants you to pull more constellations, as the level 100 seller is more impactful than her signature. It's a bad weapon, please don't get it. Furina doesn't do enough damage in teams to warrant getting a purely offensive weapon. Then to round things out with Arlecchino, here's an updated vertical investment infographic for her for Melt's teams. Once again, both her constellations and weapon are good, and similar increases, you can't really go wrong in what you choose. The interruption resistance from Arlecchino C1 is starting to matter less, as her best teammates steer towards shielders anyways, like in Nefa and Sitlali. So in that case, I think I'm more so starting to lean more towards recommending her weapon more than her constellations, unless you're going to get her C2. But with that, I think I've yapped enough and said everything I wanted to. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who you're pulling for in Luna 2, as I'd love to hear and respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, thank you all so much for the continued support. It means the world to me, and I love you all. Let me talk a bit longer so I can put everyone up on screen. Thanks again to everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.